Who is this actually good for, who should skip it, and is it worth the price for a normal everyday buyer? If you've been scrolling through endless TV options and wondering whether a premium-priced Samsung is a gamble or a safe bet, you're not alone. The hesitation usually comes from two places. First, the fear of overpaying for a model that sounds like it belongs in a home theater showroom, and second, the worry that the fancy AI processor and higher refresh rate claims won't translate into a noticeable difference in your living room. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I spent a few evenings setting up the Samsung 55-inch S90F in a midsize apartment that already has a compact bookshelf, a two-person couch, and a small window that lets in a fair amount of daylight. The first thing I noticed was how the TV stand feels almost weightless once it's on the stand, yet the bottom panel still anchors it firmly enough that kids bouncing on the couch didn't make it wobble. That matters if you're the type who worries about a TV tipping over in a high-traffic family room. What really matters after you've unboxed it is how the picture behaves in the everyday lighting conditions you actually live with. The S90F's AI processor promises to transform everything on screen to impressive 4K, and in practice that means even a standard definition broadcast of a sitcom looks sharper than it did on my previous 4K TV from a few years ago. The upscaling works best when the source material is already close to HD. It can't magically create detail out of a blurry CCTV feed, but for most streaming services that serve 1080p or higher, the difference is noticeable. In a bright living room, the brightness level held up well enough that the whites didn't wash out, and the deeper contrast meant black scenes in a thriller retained a sense of depth rather than turning into a flat gray. If you're a gamer, the 144Hz motion engine and motion accelerator caught my eye because the marketing says it eliminates tearing. In a couple of quick tests with a popular fast-paced shooter, the framerate lock felt smoother than the 60 Hz I'm used to, and I didn't spot any ghosting during rapid panning. The latency was low enough that I could comfortably play on a 60 Hz console without feeling a lag, but the TV isn't a dedicated gaming monitor, you still get a bit of input lag compared to a high-end PC display. Still, for the occasional couch gaming session, it feels solid. Now, who should actually consider spending the premium on the S90F? First, anyone who watches a lot of HDR content, whether that's Netflix originals, Amazon Prime movies, or a regular stream of sports, will notice the extra punch and highlights and the richer shadow detail. If you have a moderately bright room and you enjoy the occasional movie night, the TV's ability to push brightness while keeping contrast tight gives a more cinematic feel without needing a dedicated projector. Second, households with kids who love animated series will benefit from the smoother motion. The processor does a good job of reducing motion blur that can make cartoon frames look jittery on lower-end panels. On the flip side, if your viewing habits are limited to daytime news, a few sitcom reruns, and you're comfortable with a 1080p panel that's a bit cheaper, you might be better off skipping the S90F. The AI upscaling and HDR enhancements are most apparent when you have high-quality source material, so if you rarely stream 4K or don't own a console that can output at that resolution, the premium price isn't fully justified. Also, the TV's design leans toward a sleek, minimalist look that doesn't hide cables very well. If you're particular about a tidy setup, you'll need to invest in a separate cable management solution or a wall mount that hides the connections. One hidden trade-off I discovered after a week of use is the TV's sound. Samsung has moved away from large built-in speakers in favor of a thinner profile, and while the software tries to simulate a broader soundstage, it still feels thin for blockbuster action scenes. If you're the type who relies on TV speakers for most of your watching, you'll likely want a soundbar or a small home theater system. The good news is the TV's HDMI ARC support makes that addition painless, but it's an extra cost to keep in mind. Another practical point is the smart platform. The built-in Alexa integration works, but it's not as seamless as a dedicated Echo device. Voice commands for turning the TV on or changing inputs sometimes lag a second or two, and you can't control third-party smart home devices directly from the TV without using the Samsung SmartThings app. If you already have a smart home ecosystem built around Google or Apple, you'll find yourself toggling between apps rather than having a single voice hub. That said, the TV's UI for popular streaming apps is clean and responsive, and the ability to pin your favorite services to the home screen cuts down on navigation time. From